Hello and welcome to Realty Television, where we focus on all aspects of the real estate market. My name is Dawn Chubet, and today we are focusing on recreational property. Just in time for summer, our first guest is Rudy Nielsen, who is the president of Neho Land and Cattle Company and Landcore Data Corporation, with everything you need to know if you're in the market. Thank you for joining us today.
Dawn, thank you for having me.
Well, what are some of the benefits of recreational property?
Well, one of the key things is the enjoyment of going out and seeing nature. Take your kids, take your wife or your spouse, take them out, light a fire, sit around, have some hot dogs, cook some marshmallows, and really get to know the family.
I'm relaxing already. Who's buying?
Mostly Lower Mainland people. I'd say 75 to 80% of the market right now for recreational land is from the Lower Mainland, some from Victoria. And then the next would be the Americans. The Americans through the LA, San Francisco area, some from Seattle are coming into British Columbia. And then I would say the Germans and the English people be next.
So when we look at residential property, we already know it's a seller's market. Is it the case also with recreational property?
It is. I've been in this business 40 years, and this is the most active market I've ever seen. It's just unbelievable how these recreational properties are just selling.
And is it affordable for anyone, really?
It is still affordable. You can, it all depends, where you're buying, what part of British Columbia you're buying in, but it is still affordable for everybody.
And what kind of features should I be looking at?
I think some of the key things is the distance from your house to your property. And I always look at the 4-hour, 6-hour, 8-hour circles. So in other words, if you have the wife and the kids, or the wife takes the husband,
right,
and the kids, 4 hours, you can leave Friday night and go into your recreational property and come back on Sunday night.
All right, let's move on and then talk about with some of the trends with respect to recreational properties. What are you seeing out there?
The trends right now is it's more of driving. That 4-hour drive, that's the most important feature, the 6-hour drive, the 8-hour drive. And people are looking for properties on lakes, but they're very difficult. Unlike Ontario and the lakes districts, it's very difficult to find lake property. I mean, the closest lake we've got is Nicola Lake up in Merritt,
Okay.
And that's a long drive. Right? I mean, it's a short drive compared to going into the 100-mile house into Williams Lake area.
What about Whistler, Sun Peaks?
Whistler is a great place, but the market is very stable. The average assessed value has risen 17% through the entire province, but Whistler only 5%.
Okay.
I'm really high on Sun Peaks. I think that's a great investment. You can get more, probably 500 square feet more in a condo, say, in Sun Peaks than you can in Whistler. So it's a great buy. I think it's going to be one of the big destinations in British Columbia.
All right, what about Shuswap Lake? Are you thinking that's kind of more of an established area, or is that kind of one of the up-and-comers?
That is established area, but still is good prices.
Okay, so good value.
You've got the market from Calgary to Vancouver. I go again by the 4-hour circle. Calgary, you drive 4 hours. Vancouver, you drive 4 hours. And then the 6-hour circle and the 8-hour circle. And the farther you get out of that circle, the less expensive the properties are. So you can buy a lot in, say, Nicola Lake for $350,000 to $450,000. You go to Prince George, you can buy a lot, same size lot for $45,000.
Right, because the accessibility is not as much.
So basically, it's how far you drive. So I always look at the golden circle. So Calgary and Vancouver. So it's the Shuswap Lakes, it's Vernon, it's Penticton, all through that whole area.
So those would be some of the up-and-comers then, some places that you can get still good value for your dollar?
Vernon, Penticton, Kelowna is pretty, it's pretty high price right now, but Vernon, Penticton, all through that whole area, Oliver, Soyuz, those are great places to invest in right now. All
right, well, let's talk about recreational investment. What attracts the investors for recreational property?
A lot of people are nervous to make it an investment. Like I like recreational land because there's no management.
Right.
I was in commercial. I have owned lots of commercial buildings, but recreational, there is no tenants. Nobody phones me, and I just have a piece of property that I can go out and relax and take my sons, my grandkids out, walk through the bush, and you can clean up that property, take some underbrush out, make a view lot. And as you're having fun, you're adding value to your investment.
You talked about the weekend cowboy.
The weekend cowboy. So I always like, the weekend cowboy is the guy that's got lots of money. He probably is in the stock market. He buys a pair of brand new cowboy boots, pair of jeans, real good in a shirt, a hat. And he buys a piece of recreational property. And he will fly out of his office there into his home and pick up all his stuff, takes off Friday night, goes to his recreational piece of property. Next day he's on his horse riding around the range. And Sunday he's on his horse and does a little fly fishing. And then Sunday he just ties the horse, gives it to the manager, and he comes back Sunday night.
So it's a perfect holiday. It's great.
It's a great
That's the purpose of having recreational property, for
sure. It is. Yeah, it is.
All right, well, let's move on to some of the pitfalls of owning recreational property, and maybe some of the things that people need to be aware of before they even look to purchase.
The two things I always look for is access and water. to make sure you would access that property. Sometimes you see a road going into the property, but it might not be a dedicated road. It might not have an easement. You're going across somebody else's property. You could have a problem there. So make sure that you have dedicated access. There's a registered easement going into that property. And the second thing is water. You know, if you're not on the creek or not on the river, make sure that you can drill a well and reach water. Now, I bought properties and taken gambles, and I've always hit water. But, I mean, I've gone down as much as 700 feet to get water. So you make sure you've got water.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the Penturbia movement.
The Penturbia. Jack Lissinger out of L.A. wrote a book of the migration. There's 5 migrations over the last 100 years. The migration from Los Angeles to Phoenix. Phoenix, you know, and then the people from Los Angeles get to Phoenix and they try to close the door behind them because they don't want more people coming in. They want that sweet little town.
Right.
And then they go to Oregon, then they go to Washington. So we're seeing the same thing now in British Columbia. We're seeing where the blue-collar worker, I'm just going to take an example here, has bought his house in about 25 years ago, paid $35,000 to $85,000 for it. He's close to retirement. Somebody from another country or from the United States comes and buys his house for $600,000 to $800,000.
Lots of money now.
Lots of money because he's never seen that much money, you know, because that's one of your best investments is tax-free.
Sure, of course.
And then you move to a smaller town. So you can, the average, like say Kamloops, for instance, the average price of a house there is about $220,000. So you go to Kamloops, you spend $220,000, you get a brand new house, and you buy an aluminum boat and a motor, and you go do a little fishing you've always wanted to do. You play a little golf.
Yeah.
And then you buy a motorhome for $80,000, and in the winter months you're gone, and their grandkids come and visit you with your kids, you know.
And that's what makes it the perfect investment.
And that's why it's such a good investment.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and of course we'll have all your information on our website as well.
Dawn, thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Here is your recap. When looking to purchase recreational property, you will want to look at its proximity from a major city as well as access to water, the 2 most important things. People are buying properties in Whistler as well as Sun Peaks, and these are some of the established hot spots. The prices are reflected in that, but there are some other areas to watch for. Look for Shuswap, Vernon, and Salmon Arm as some of the up-and-comers. Market indicators are many people are really attracted to recreational property, from families to couples to the weekend cowboy. And finally, pitfalls when looking at property: be aware of any environmental issues as well as access to water. Coming up after the break, house rich and cash poor. Stay with us. The safeguard there.
Realty Television is brought to you by the following